D2 was released on the Sega Dreamcast in 1999 by master Japanese developer Kenji Eno and his company Warp, and distributed by Sega in Western countries in 2000. It was a survival horror game starring Warp's leading lady, Laura, who'd made 2 previous appearances in their games D and Enemy Zero, although none of the stories are connected, besides the Laura character. The game was originally planned as a launch title for 3DO's follow-up console, the Panasonic M2, but once the console was scrapped, that 50% complete version was abandoned. Discussions between Kenji and Sega resulted in a possible Sega Saturn port of the M2 game, until it was finally decided to ultimately start over for the Dreamcast with a heavily altered story and game design for Sega's new console. Yes, Kenji talking about D2's connection to Warp's other games. No, it has no relationship. I named the game D2 to bring myself back to how I felt when I created D, but most of the reasons come from the game's atmosphere. I thought that if I named it D2, it would maintain the flavor of the original. Also, the same programmer who worked on D was part of the D2 team.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Cloner Alliance is a fantastic affordable video capture device that can be linked directly to your PC and can be used as a completely independent system for all types of video capture. It's an excellent solution for VCR, DVD, and retro gaming recordings, coming with all the necessary connections you need. You can record both analog and digital straight to a USB drive with a simple click of a remote button, plus instant video playback as well. Great for not only retro games, but modern systems with multiple resolutions, 60 frames per second capture, PAL and NTSC compatible, very simple and easy setup with some straightforward user instructions, plus bonus extra downloadable software free of charge. This device is available now on Amazon and their website. All links to the system are in the video description, and I thank them for this sponsorship. The storyline has a lot of threads that play themselves out during the entire game. You're Laura, who's on a plane as it gets taken over by terrorists controlled by a cult leader. An FBI agent steps in as the chaos on board ramps up. The plane is hit by a meteorite, and it crashes into the remote Canadian wilderness. You wake up 10 days later with no knowledge of what happened, which is obviously part of the mystery. Dead people on the plane are reviving and mutating into hideous creatures. As you start to search for help and a way to contact the outside world and other survivors, as the feelings of dread and isolation start to set in. This is what Kenji had to say about evoking fear in gamers. Evoking fear is one of the means to eventually communicate my message. I'm just using this expression to generate laugh and faithful effects. Violence occurs every day, everywhere. Lives, death, love, pain, happiness, bliss, anger. I just want to express these things. If the blood is necessary to express them, I do use it. D2's gameplay is varied and multi-layered, being a combination of Kenji's D and his later excellent Enemy Zero on the Saturn, plus a lot more. Once you have control of Laura, the wilderness is pretty much open to explore, and with the aid of a map you can start plotting where you want to go. The game employs a third-person perspective for exploring the open snow-padded mountains, and switches to first-person views for battles, where you'll be fighting against mutant passengers with various types of guns. You also have access to a rifle to snipe wildlife to pick up food for energy, and when you enter into structures, the perspective changes yet again to first-person on-rails mode, similar to D, where you can explore an area and use the items you found to solve puzzles. Later, you'll also have access to a snowmobile to cut down on the back-and-forth traveling. It combines a lot of different elements into its design, and all work very well. Your main menu is also loaded with information, giving you details on items, the wildlife to hunt, your overall map location, photos you've taken, and access to save, which can be done at any time during the game's exploration mode, which makes it very, very user-friendly if you wanted to try play this game now. Here's Kenji talking about whether John Carpenter's The Thing had any inspiration on the game's storyline. Some people told me that, and then I realized I like Carpenter, so I'm glad to hear that. Maybe yes, I am influenced by this movie. If you try D2, I think you'll notice so much more. I'm inspired not only by American cinema, but also European movies. Graphically, D2 is impressive. It's obviously aged, But if you can still get invested in the environments and the characters playing it now, then they did a really good job. All footage here is captured off my real Japanese Dreamcast, whether it's from the real-time style sequences, the big budget style CGI cutscenes, or the really intense action sequences. It all has a lot of detail and attention put in. The white washed out look just adds to the overall feeling of isolation. All three styles of the game engine play to the Dreamcast strengths, with only the character models looking a little bit dated, but again it doesn't really detract from the overall enjoyment of the story. Kenji was then asked what the significance of the winter setting means. I just want the player to feel something or think something during the game. This is why I always set up emergency situations. Also in D2 there are many occasions where you experience flashbacks and illusions. The white world goes well with these experiences. It's like a whiteout. Sound is always a key component of Kenji Eno's games. In fact, sound is the soul of all of them, really taking you on a journey in unexpected ways. The soundtrack, composed by Kenji himself, is a mix of haunting piano pieces, Hollywood-styled orchestral samples, and very electronic-styled beats. It's my favorite of all his games he ever made. I was one of those freaks out there that bought a Japanese Dreamcast almost a year before the English launch and enjoyed so many games like Virtua Fighter 3 and Sega Rally 2 well before anyone I knew had one. D2 was also one of those games I played through the full Japanese version first, and later ended up getting the English almost a year later. The plot was an absolute mess for me, obviously not knowing the language, although it all came together when I replayed it in English. The big factor though was the sound. I didn't know what people were saying, but the score told me everything I needed. It was my cue for everything, and because my lifeline to understanding what to do next, it was simply amazing how much story was told through 0 words at all. Overall, D2 is a game I will never forget. If you ever get to the end and face off against the boss, you'll know exactly what I mean. It delivered a true cinematic experience in storytelling, sound design and graphics, while making its survival horror stylings feel original and nothing like its contemporaries. But I'll leave the final words here for Kenji and what inspired him to make games. I love paintings. I hope to achieve a level of graphics like Mark Chagall in my games. Music is my energy. Literature is for storyline.